Hi there, this is Julia from Grad Schools Pro. This is going to be the last video in this series where we're going to talk about how to write a scientific paper with the ideas framework. And this is part 6. So it's S stands for submit. And here we're going to talk about getting ready for submission. So in this video, first we're going to recap the IDS framework very briefly. Then we're going to talk about preprint server, so how not to get scooped. Then we're going to talk about how to fast track your submission using pre-submission inquiries. Then we're going to talk about the perfect cover letter. And last but not least, how to address the reviewer's comments without losing your mind. Very briefly recapping the ideas framework. If you haven't watched any of the other videos in the series, I highly recommend starting at the very beginning. So IDEA stands for I, imagine. So here you think about the critical questions before you start writing at all. Then D stands for draft and document. You draft the method section and you document what you did. Then E stands for establish and express, where you establish your storyline and you express what you want to say. Then A stands for adjust, where you edit your manuscript and you finalize the manuscript. And then S stands for submit. I've been using this IDEAS framework for many years to write and publish my own papers in a matter of weeks and actually having fun doing this. I've taught many grad students, undergrads, and postdocs how to write and publish their papers, and I'd love to teach that to you too, because first of all, I love talking about this. And secondly, I also love my students actually having fun writing and also publishing amazing papers. If you want to learn more of how to write and publish a paper, check out the description below for free resources, such as this step-by-step process that I'm linking over here, or the speaker guide over here. Let's talk about preprint servers very briefly. So you probably know from experience when you write and submit a paper, and especially if you're shooting for high-profile journals, it can take up to years to actually get a paper published. And I'm not even necessarily talking about the writing process, but really the process of going through the submission and until actually your paper is accepted. If you have high impact science, and you have things that needs to go out quickly, one of the problems you might run into is that you're actually getting what's called scooped. This means that somebody else published something very similar or even the same thing, and this can be very frustrating simply because you did the work and they published it first. And so what you might want to do is you might want to consider uploading your paper to a preprint server right before you submit your manuscript to a journal. A preprint server is a website where you pre-publish your manuscript. It doesn't actually count as an actual publication because it's not peer-reviewed, and it takes about 1 or 2 days to show up online. So it goes through a very brief screening process before it shows up online. And your manuscript also gets a DOI, which stands for Digital Object Identifier, which you can use to reference your paper. But before you submit your paper to a preprint journal, you might want to check that the journals that you're ultimately wanting to submit to actually allow publication on a preprint server, even though publication is not a real publication. Because if you don't, then they will not actually take your paper. So let's talk about pre-submission inquiries. A pre-submission inquiry is a letter to the journal editor asking whether they would actually consider your paper. And usually that means that they're not actually looking at the whole paper, they're actually just asking for an abstract. And using a pre-submission inquiry can actually be very helpful to avoid a lengthy process until you actually know whether a journal might consider your paper or not. A pre-submission inquiry can give you an answer within a week or so, and the editor will let you know whether they would potentially send it up for review or not. So now before we talk about the cover letter, if you like this type of content and want to get notified when the next video comes out, go hit the subscribe button and also comment below with what you're struggling with most when you're writing a paper so I can actually make videos about it and help you out best. So now let's talk about cover letters. How do you write the perfect cover letter? What is a cover letter in the first place? So a cover letter is a letter that you're writing to the editor when you're submitting your manuscript. And in that cover letter, you're really selling your paper to the editor. So you don't just say, oh, this is what you did, but you're also putting your research in context to the larger field and tell the journal why they would want your paper in the first place. In the cover letter, you will also add potential reviewers. And you can find them from other papers that you're reading, from experts in the field, the people you know that are great scientists that would be ideal reviewers for this paper. And also, last but not least, you will need to find editors. It's always a good idea to find specific editors to address your cover letter to. And really, the editor's expertise should match the research in your paper. So now let's talk about responding to reviewers' comments. And I know when you get the reviewers' comments back, it can make you feel very frustrated, or it can make you very happy. It can make you feel confused. So I think it's really an important thing to address here. One of the things is having a well-written paper usually makes it a lot easier to get good reviews in the first place, and also with comments that are easy to address, which is you don't just want to write a paper and submit this, but you want to write a good paper so that you actually get good reviews and helpful reviews. So one main thing that I needed to learn over the years is to not get emotional about the reviewers' comments. And this can be difficult, but if you see this as the manuscript or the draft or the paper, as a thing that is separate from yourself as a person, that basically means a manuscript is some work that you did, but you need to separate yourself from your work. So do not take reviewers' comments personal, but rather say, okay, they're commenting some work that I did, but they're not a reflection of me as a person. It's always a good idea to put this on yourself if there's something that the reviewer didn't understand. So it's always a good idea to say, oh, I'm sorry we didn't clarify this enough. This is my fault. I should have done a better job at this. So now if you want me to teach you how to write and submit your paper in a lot more detail, you can come join us in the Zero-to-Publish program by following the link in the description. Again, what I've been showing here is just a small introduction into what I'm actually teaching in the Zero-to-Publish program. And thank you so much for watching, and go check out this video where I'll be talking about the main elements that make your paper stand out and that are often overlooked in writing.